These next 2 rounds will be a double header of round 3 of Swiss here for day number 1, and we're ready with one of those matches on the stage. So let's go ahead and take a look over there and introduce our 2 players that will be competing in this next matchup. We have Oriol Plaza and Hirofumi Kimura.
We just think we're in for a great game.
I think so as well, and I love that point you bring up about how the circuits are just a touch different. But in this case, we're actually seeing a mirror matchup here. So what ends up being incredibly important is how are those Pokemon trained and what type of movesets and items are these Pokemon going to have?
This is going to come down to some real fine detailing.
But let's go ahead and kick off game number 1 between Oriol Plaza and Hirofumi Kimura. And we're going to see the mirror on both sides of the Zacian and the Thunderous. But it looks like Oriol Zacian is going to get the Intrepid Sword boost first, but we have to wait a little bit to see if that is a speed tie or if Oriol Zacian is just a bit faster.
It's going to have to take a turn or 2 to figure it out for both of these players as well. They do need that piece of information. But nice to see them both understanding one of the key leads of this 6 that they've bought. I mean, Hirofumi, obviously, runner-up at Worlds, knows exactly how to play some of these awkward matchups. If you're following along in his footsteps as Oriol, you've got to feel pretty good, but then it's going to be such a close match. There's the Dynamax coming out already, and surprise, surprise, it's the Thunderous. It's the only option, but it's on Hirofumi's side. So if there's a mismatch of the Dynamax, that could actually make this game very, very interesting very, very early on. There is going to be the follow-up. There it is. So both trainers committing to it early doors.
Yeah, and so this is really where the training and those minuscule details that you were talking about really will make a big difference here, especially when you have the same Pokemon on both sides. How are they trained? Is the Zacian a little bit more attack focused? Maybe the Thunderous as well, as we are going to start to see the Behemoth Blade first coming out from Oriol, and that will be into the Thunderous, and so that will be a hefty chunk of damage there as that brings it down pretty low.
That's what happens when you Dynamax it. You're going to be taking extra damage, and guess what? Hirofumi is going to go for the exact same play as well. He knows that that's a Dynamax candidate and immediately hits it for a lot of damage.
Knockout.
Yeah, that's a slight difference. A critical hit, getting the knockout.
That's a big deal here because that is just the Dynamax completely removed from the equation here for Oriol. What a massive move here for Hirofumi, as well you can follow it up with a max airstream from your own Thunderous, and now you are probably faster. There's not that much difference, it feels like, from the damage calculation of both of these Zacians, so now you're looking at a potential outspeed here.
You're definitely going to be the fastest Zacian on the field, I think, at this point. There's no way that you'd fall that far behind. But speaking of speed control, here comes a Whimsicott that would be able to cause some problems. The big thing there, though, that critical hit changes everything for Oriol. Has to dig deep in his team immediately because Dynamax being so important in this format. I'm going to call that a zero-turn Dynamax. No max move coming out from Oriol's side of the field, no max airstream, no nothing, is going to be putting himself at a severe disadvantage. Of course, at the moment, it's a speed disadvantage. Whimsicott can balance that up with a potential Tailwind, but is there something else you want to try and play around early doors?
Well, the Tailwind feels so necessary here because you have to keep up the pace with the Thunderous, and if you're not able to knock it out now, because we will see actually the Behemoth Blade
still
once again. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are going to see that into the Zacian, so yeah, it will be able to be fast enough, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to see a Behemoth Blade, of course, fire back. Usually Zacians cannot knock each other out right away unless they have some type of attack boost, but here we go. I mean, that extra little bit of damage from that max airstream in that previous turn was enough to make sure that Zacian could get the knockout, and a super effective max airstream as well, bringing that Whimsicott down to its focus sash.
And bringing the speed back to parity as well, making sure that you've got 2 boosts on both your Pokemon to match up with that the Tailwind as well. It's a bit slower, but it still seems to work out very, very nicely. And the big thing for me there, Oriol wasn't really able to, you know, capitalize on the fact he did set up a speed boost immediately, and he did get one set up with a Tailwind. Yes, his Zacian went first, but then it targeted down the other Zacian, didn't pick up that knockout on Thunderous, and from there, I think it started to lose a little bit of pace. Of course, if you do want speedy Pokemon, you do have to look at something like the Shadow Rider Calyrex. That is going to be very, very fast, and honestly, could tidy up this board position from Hirofumi, pick up those boosts, and once those boosts get going, there could be a massive problem on Hirofumi's hands. So even though he's in a 4-2 Pokemon advantage, I don't think he's necessarily completely out of it. This is a fast, end game sweeping position, and this switch maybe just to deny a potential boost nice and early on.
Yeah, we're actually going to see the Thunderous not utilize its final turn of Max, and there's the quick attack just to be able to secure that final bit of HP on Oriol's Whimsicott. So now it is just the Calyrex to be able to shore up this first game if possible, and we will see that the Whimsicott on Hirofumi's side is also carrying a Focus Sash. So while you did get the knockout onto the Zacian, you're also going to be able to see what else Hirofumi may have in the back, and if it ends up being that Calyrex as well, that's a really quick Pokemon that if you have Tailwind too, then you're going to be able to make that happen. But in fact, it's going to be the Incineroar.
The Incineroar, a pretty good selection here. The Incineroar
it is quite good.
Being able to do massive damage to a Shadow Rider Calyrex. Oh, nice little piece of information for later. Maybe relevant against something like the Gastrodon. Don't think it's so relevant here. But the big thing here is what can stop that Calyrex sweeping through the end of the game. Of course, the Thunderous is very, very low. Even if you brought it in next to the Whimsicott, you may be able to kind of, try and get it faster, but it's still not going to catch up with the Shadow Rider Calyrex, and then you'd just be giving over Grenade boosts. The big thing about that turn, you only gave over one Grenade boost, makes it very, very comfortable. No danger of knocking out the Incineroar there. Yes, you do pick up the Whimsicott, but nothing that we saw from Incineroar so far is suggesting to me that it's not going to be able to deal with this, and we know the Shadow Rider Calyrex does not have the options to hold on, as Insurance just tidies up the game.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Astral Barrage, of course, you're not seeing enough of a boost onto the Shadow Rider Calyrex to be able to get the knockout, then yeah, that's a big reveal, though, as well to Oriol, that there is a Dark-type attack on that Incineroar, and so that's some knowledge you're going to need going into the second game.
All the Incineroar needed to do was take that Astral Barrage, and it does that very, very comfortably, even after a Grenade boost. So just being able to bring that in and say, you know what, this is my endgame position, you can attack me, and I will get the knockout. Nice and easy, sending us into game number 2. There we go. Hirofumi reveals it on his side, and you can already see, thanks to the spectator menu, that it's going to be the same for Oriol Plaza as well. So it looks like we could be in for a nice early run back, if you will. But then, once again, the Zacian continually going first on Oriol's side. That may be something he needs to capitalize on a little bit more. Of course, the big factor here that could change the game, let's not be, too polite about it. If he doesn't get critical hit, it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely what I'm looking forward to, as we see that there is already going to be a Dynamax. It's going to be Hirofumi once again Dynamaxing that Thunderous, but it's a matter of time before we find out if Oriol's decided to do the same. It would make a lot of sense, just knowing that most of the time when you bring the Thunderous into a game, that is going to be your Dynamax of choice, just because of how much pressure it can put onto an opponent, and also knowing that you might get a chance to get some type of Defiant boost if that is what you have on your Thunderous.
The big thing for Oriol is that Thunderous needs to stick around for more than one turn, and now you've Dynamaxed it. I don't see a world where it gets knocked out again, unless, of course, Hirofumi double targets it and realizes what a big impact he had being able to take that out so early on. But there is a world where the Thunderous is still going to be able to cause some problems. We're going to run the turn back so far. Let's see if we go 4 for 4 on how this one played out. As we've already got a difference, there is the different targeting the Zacian into the Zacian there, bringing it very, very low indeed. But here we go for Hirofumi. Let's see where his targeting goes and if he's made an adjustment there as well. He has, as it goes over into the opposing Zacian, but he gets a clean one-hit knockout, being able to show that maybe he's a little bit slower in exchange for something else. The Thunderers are both on the field at full health as well, and a Max Airstream comes through from Hirofumi's first. So he's been winning that speed tie, while Oriol's been winning the Zacian speed tie. Now it's up to Oriol's Thunderous to show us what it can do. There's the Max Airstream, and looking at the targeting from earlier, it's going to go into that Zacian. Both of those are gone from the field, and both Thunderous have set up a Max Airstream. They've got a speed boost, and of course, no partner taking advantage of that. It does mean that the only difference right now is the damage put down on the Thunderous.
Yeah, and the Thunderous as well, you can see that Oriol's is actually going to be the Life Orb. We've seen that chip damage come through at the end of every move, and we still see Hirofumi's Thunderous at full health. So that does kind of give away that it's not the Life Orb, at least, and so maybe it has traded a bit of that extra damage for something that might be a bit more survivable for this Thunderous, as we now see what is going to replace both of those Zacians on the field.
We're finally getting away from the game number 1 run back really far, with trainers bringing in completely different Pokemon, Oriol showing off that Calyrex Shadow Rider, and then of course the Whimsicott for Hirofumi. So certainly playing out the end game a little bit differently. But the big thing right now is Hirofumi has two options that can really control the speed, right? He's going to be able to try and set something up by setting up a tailwind potentially, and of course landing more max airstreams. The only speed control on Oriol's side is going to be those consistent max airstreams. So after this tailwind, Hirofumi definitely going to be going first on the Thunderous, as Max Lightning comes through onto the opposing Thunderous and does a decent amount, I'd say, but not threatening the knockout.
Yeah, it's still just a nice chunk of damage, though, to really make sure that that Thunderous is going to be within knockout range of potentially what might be in the back. But a Thunderous going for a Max Lightning right on top of that, too. It's going to take Hirofumi's Thunderous to half HP and the Astral Barrage as well, just to make sure you get some damage in. It's not going to be enough to clean up the Thunderous, but it does bring that Whimsicott back down to its Focus Sash.
Bringing that Whimsicott down, not getting a knockout there, I think, is pretty slowing for Oriol, right? Not getting either knockout there. I think the Focus Sash is absolutely huge, because now Hirofumi is comfortably the fastest thing on the field and is going to be able to you know, throw out a couple of options, if you will, from his Whimsicott. The Whimsicott has one more turn, essentially, to try and freely get something done, and what it does is going to be absolutely essential. You've got to make sure that your targeting and move choice is correct and very, very impactful, because you're giving up a Grimnay boost at the end of this turn. So if you're going to give that up, make sure it's worth it. This Thunderous is getting exceptionally low on Hirofumi's side as well, as Oriol has decided that his has not done any work. So another game where these trainers understand that if Thunderous can't do anything, you've got to get it out. And big thing, can you get it in to be valuable speed-wise? Whimsicott is very important here.
Yep, so Whimsicott's going to end up taking this Max Lightning instead. So because it's not very effective, you can see that Whimsicott is going to hang on quite easily, as Hirofumi reveals that it has Moonblast. And so going into the Calyrex, it's another critical hit. Oriol being on the receiving end of another one in this second game. But on the comeback, you have the Thunderous and the Whimsicott double knockout. That is a +2 boost here for the Shadow Rider Calyrex. And just like that, Hirofumi is down to his final Pokemon in this game too.
And of course, that Grimnay means anything, I think, coming in, because it's single target, is going to be pretty readily knocked out, of course, by that Shadow Rider Calyrex. So a lot of work to do for the Incineroar. I don't know if Incineroar can take this 3v1. Of course, it is going to be looking at something like the Shadow Rider Calyrex. Does land an Intimidate, which is completely useless on either of these Pokemon. It is in the air, which isn't going to be completely relevant here either. So I think Hirofumi maybe going a bit slow and getting a little bit punished by that Whimsicott switch in. So trying to tidy up the Thunderous felt very, very aggressive there. Even with the Tailwind, you know, set up earlier, Hirofumi's Incineroar is going to be going much, much slower, as double Grimnay boost, Calyrex throws down the Astral Barrage into the Incineroar, and it's a clean one-hit knockout. Pops the Evelyn too.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It pops that party just a little bit, but that does mean that we are now tied up in this series. Oriol Plaza now at 1 game win, and Hirofumi as well at 1 win. And you know what's really interesting about both of these players as well, seeing how they're piloting these Zacian and Shadow Rider Calyrex teams, is that this is a new archetype for both of them, really. I mean, we did end up seeing a little bit of at least the Zacian and the Shadow Rider Calyrex from Oriol before at EUIC. We did see that, but just a little bit of a difference in having the Rillaboom instead of the Whimsicott. But you also take a look at how, of course, Hirofumi with the Japan Nationals, it's just a different circuit, so you're going to see some wildly different things.
The big thing here is, in that last game, they both pivoted to knock out the Zacian. Of course, Hirofumi was able to do it a little bit easier and was then able to cause some problems. But while I talk about how good that lead is, Hirofumi decides it's not the one he wants for Game 3.
No, the change here is the Whimsicott now taking that Thunderous's place. And we're just going to go ahead and see some of these abilities go off and then see kind of where we go from there. The fact that we see the Tailwind and the Moonblast from the Whimsicott, you have nice damage options available to you, but it really is about the support that Whimsicott's going to provide.
That Whimsicott can do so much to help out depending on its moveset as well. But the Zacian being able to potentially move first, you know, there's no easy way, or no immediate way rather, compared to Prankster to set up a speed boost. So you have to go through the motions of setting up your max airstream to keep your Zacian going faster as well. Hirofumi could easily deal with that opposing Zacian, as we saw in the last game. Didn't require a critical hit, Obviously, it's going slower. That training's got to go somewhere, and you imagine it's going right into the attack there, being able to knock this out. Both trainers respecting that, you don't want to bring your Incineroar early doors, you don't want to hand over a Defiant boost, so being able to capitalize on that by keeping your Intrepid Sword for once, which is pretty rare in the modern format, being able to keep that around and capitalize on it is absolutely huge. But again, Hirofumi cannot ignore this Thunderous for too long, or it will continue to cause problems.
Ooh.
The Zacian going for the Protect here, really, really big. Hirofumi's targeting could be big.
Oh, well, the Charm, yeah, that's going to be a big reveal there for the Whimsicott. The Protect, of course, going to keep that Zacian safe, but we will end up seeing Hirofumi's Zacian now get a chance to attack into Oriol's Thunderous, and that will be at least a survival this time around. No critical hit, but that does mean that Thunderous can fire back with a max airstream. And there's a really important note here, too, is because we didn't see the Tailwind either, that does give a little bit more, maybe advantage going over to Oriol, because now you have that max airstream boost, and that Zacian, because it protected, didn't take any damage, and it's still going to be able to move quickly because you get that boost through the Protect.
Well, the max airstream boost as well forces Hirofumi's hand a little bit, right? If you want to keep up in speed and what's been so important in both games, you've got a Tailwind, but that means you're not landing the Charm and the Zacian. So I really like that Protect from in there, kind of saying, you know what, I think you may be trying to catch my Zacian out here. I mean, it got hit last game, so it makes sense to protect it there. And then Hirofumi going into it had no real other options, though, apart from that Tailwind, which we finally see. Of course, the Zacian now landing the Behemoth Blade very, very nicely, being able to knock out one of these Pokemon. It's going back into the Zacian, and it is, of course, confirming that it's an easy knockout and a difference in training that is so important. But the Thunderous is going to be able to set up another max airstream. Now it's going to be keeping up, essentially, with that Tailwind, and these Tailwind turns are going to be really, really important. Hirofumi is going to have to probably bring something in to maybe try and keep the speed advantage. His own Thunderous would feel really, really good here, especially because, another max airstream, while he's in the Tailwind, he's certainly going to be able to pick up this Thunderous, which an easy Behemoth Blade here deals with that, and then his own Thunderous could kind of run through the rest of the game.
Yeah, the +2 max airstream boost isn't going to quite be enough, at least for Oriol to keep up, but when you've got Whimsicott in the back, then you can set a Tailwind of your own, and that does mean that the Thunderous can get off one final turn of Dynamax, if that is what Oriol decides to do.
Well, Oriol's in a great position here because he can immediately match the Tailwind, then his Thunderous is guaranteed going first because of those max airstream boosts, able to put down a good chunk of damage. I don't know where you put it here. That's the big question, is you're not really hitting anything for super effective damage, but whatever you're worried about in the later game is going to be the Pokemon you want to chunk. And I would imagine something like that Thunderous on Hirofumi's side has got to be something you consider, because then you could start to pick it up a little bit easier with something like the Shadow Rider Calyrex that he's been bringing in the back so consistently. Of course, the Zacian struggles a little bit, in some of these situations, but, what are you going to do? Are you just going to throw max airstreams out from Hirofumi's side and try and match up that speed? Because, of course, when the Thunderous goes down, then your max airstream booster there, you've got a little bit more of Tailwind. You could capitalize in that turn, but there's very small and narrow windows where you're going to be the fastest Pokemon on the field. Unsurprisingly, there's the Dynamax, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what you have to do here, but it really depends on what Hirofumi thinks is in the back for Oriol. Like, if it ends up being that Shadow Rider Calyrex, as we've seen in our previous games, then you definitely need to worry a bit more about how these speeds are going to interact, because Oriol ended up getting that later Tailwind, then you are going to have that stick around for just a bit longer. The Max Lightning as well, just going into Hirofumi's Thunderous to get a bit more damage. At least you're seeing those 3 turns of Dynamax here from Oriol's Thunderous pay off, as the Behemoth Blade from Hirofumi's Zacian, that should be enough to get a big knockout onto the Thunderous. But I feel like you did what you wanted to do with the Thunderous here for Oriol.
Absolutely okay with that. You managed to get some good damage down onto the opposing side of the field with it, including some knockouts as well, but then you're feeling really, really good, and you got it set up. Of course, Hirofumi now in that position starts setting up those max airstreams. Whimsicott down to the Focus Sash once again. We know quite a bit about these 6s from both of these trainers, and it's really going to come down to, once again, what is the last Pokemon in the back for each of these trainers? If it's that Shadow Rider Calyrex into the Incineroar matchup, that could be why Hirofumi targeted down that opposing Thunderous last turn, just to make sure. Oriol reveals the Shadow Rider Calyrex, and we're going to wait for it from Hirofumi because he still has 2 Pokemon on the field.
He does. I mean, you're really hoping, I think, if you're Oriol, that you're going to make a knockout, get one of the boosts, and just kind of keep going from there. Whimsicott still hasn't turn here, but we did see that quick attack to field from Hirofumi. And so the way that plays out is really interesting as well in terms of the priority and speed. So
being able to deal with the Whimsicott feels really good here, and there it is, taking that massive 1 health away from the Whimsicott, being able to eliminate it and put Hirofumi in what is now a 3v1 Pokemon advantage. Another max airstream comes through before the Calyrex even gets that opportunity to move, and I just don't know how Calyrex can do this without maybe some critical hits. It's going to be a whole ask here. Astral Barrage lands, no knockouts. I think this one is wrapped up for Hirofumi Kimura.
Looks like it. Yeah, I mean, the fact that, of course, that Thundurus got another max airstream boost, and you already saw that both these Pokemon are quite fast, it probably means that we've got a big wrap-up of this match, and here's the Behemoth Blade. This should be the final bit of damage for Hirofumi Kimura to move on and just keep that perfect record so far for these first 3 rounds of Swiss. A critical hit on top of it too, just as that cherry, and that will be Hirofumi taking the match.
Yeah, that set for the Zacian started and ended with a critical hit. One mattered and one definitely didn't, but your 2019 Worlds runner-up, showing why he is one of the top players here at this tournament, and somebody to definitely watch out for. I love that they played a mirror that was very different in all 3 games. Of